there, and welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where father and son sit down and talk about some fantasy books. I'm the son of that equation, Zach.
And I'm the Father Jim. Thanks for being with us today as we come at you with another of our Wheel of Time deep dive episodes. A couple more chapters of Lord of Chaos for you today. Zach, it is a lot of fun to see you here today because our channel's gotten to the point where we're putting out a lot of content, and a lot of it's just me, some of
Oops.
it's both of us. And just lately, I've done quite a few that were just me again. So it's nice to have you here.
You know what? It's good to be back. In my perspective of things, I haven't been gone that long, but if you're just kind of going through our content, yeah, there's been a little gap.
Yeah, and it comes, it goes. It's good for people to have reassurance again, some proof of life. Zach does still exist. He's not in that cubby under the stairs, chained up, locked away. He's
No,
just
that being
busy.
said, the office here is actually a figment of your imagination. I am not real, and you can't prove otherwise.
Are you AI?
Sure, it's a really good deep fake.
Okay, nice, nice. How are you doing today, Zach?
I'm all right. It is a little earlier than sometimes wow. Apparently, I'm not all right. I'm having a stroke while I'm trying to speak. But no,
Um,
it's a fine day. Nothing crazy planned. I made shepherd's pie last night, so I've still got leftovers of that in the fridge to go back to. All around, not too bad. How about you, Dad?
I'm doing well. It's, a Saturday morning for me. It's been a slower time of year. I mean, it still feels pretty busy, but work is starting to shift to a mode where I'm not traveling quite as much for a few months. And that's nice because it's been go, 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 go for quite a while. And I can stay home a little bit, catch my breath. And we're in the Christmas season right now. So today we're hosting your mother's workplace's Christmas party. So we're going to have some fun here tonight, but we're pretty much ready for that. Just a little bit of shopping to do after we're done recording today. Piece cake.
Like for a piece of cake, or
No, not doing piece cake. I am doing those yummy bacon wrapped date thingies.
oh, those are great.
Yeah, nice appetizers. Those will be good tonight. Um, What are you drinking? Anything? It's midday, it's noon for you, so you could go either direction.
Coffee.
Ah,
And I have not spiked it yet. This is just cup 2. Maybe get to me on cup 3, and we'll see if I spike it.
that's okay. That's okay. I approve. I am also drinking coffee, although I'm doing it in our nice bling. Where the green screen shows right through. Woo-hoo. Fantasy for the Ages mug, which, if you want one, people, you can find out how in the show notes.
It's there
Hmm.
somewhere
Yeah,
down, I think.
I'm I'm right in the middle of a period of no drinking, actually. A
Mm.
2-week period, doctor's orders. I'm knocking out some little infection thing. So medication and alcohol don't always go together.
Not, in fact, they often don't.
Right,
Humans
right,
and
right, right.
alcohol don't really go together from a health standpoint, but
Exactly.
they can be nice sometimes.
Yeah. But the medicine's working. We don't need to get in details of that, but I'm going to stay the course. So I have one more week. And then right after the medication is done, your mom and I have a nice Christmas wine dinner thing all planned that we booked months ago. So the timing just kind of works brilliantly.
Speaking of wine, Rach and I are unfortunately officially adults. We went and got our complimentary comped glass of wine thing when we went last week to pick up our first wine from a wine club thing.
Nice.
It feels weird being,
Very mature of you.
I was gonna say old, but yeah, that too.
Okay, all right. Well, a few notes before we jump into our content. I do want to just again welcome all of you on YouTube who are recent subscribers. Our channel is blowing up now. It's in a really positive way. Uh, we're still small potatoes compared to a lot of channels, but we're up to 638 subscribers as of this morning. We've had 75 new subscribers just in the past 4 weeks. we're seeing 3, 4, 5 new subscribers a day now, and it seems to be escalating. So whoop whoop. Glad to share the fun. Glad that you're coming and checking us out.
Please keep it up. I'm looking forward to us hitting 666. It's going to be a really fun
I
number.
knew you were going to say that. Your mother knew you were going to say that.
Look,
She
I'm going to
mentioned
say it
last
until
night.
we hit it.
And part of how we're rising up is we continue to talk about the things we read and enjoy, and
What have you
various
been reading,
categories of
Dad?
things about books. What am I reading right now? Well, I just jumped back into Malazan.
Mm-hmm.
It shows on our screen right there.
That one.
Knight of Knives, the first novel in the Malazan order of publication by Ian C. Esselmont. So he does some parallel books, companion books in this Malazan world. I've read the first 5 of the core Malazan novels.
But this is the first non-core that you're reading,
Right,
correct?
right. And it's shorter. It's only like 300 pages. So I'm already
Yeah, it's
15% in.
only a normal-sized novel.
But it feels short when you're in these books. But already enjoying it. I hear from the fandom, this is like, for many people, their least favorite book. And so far, I don't get that. It's reading fine to me. I also just yesterday plowed through the graphic novel White Sand by Brandon
right up there.
Sanderson. Yep, right above you there. Technically, it's 3 volumes it was in, but it's just one story.
I've been waiting to get it as the big omnibus version so I could just
which is available in March, May.
I don't remember.
It's coming up in early 2024. Yep,
it's soon.
Yeah. And I also recently finished the other thing that's under you, True Quest: The Story Begins. That's an indie publication, first book in a fantasy series. I've got content out on that one and on White Sand if anybody wants to check out Book Blasts. They're there. Take a look. And finally, right below me, I'm still reading through Wolves of the Kala, book 5 of Stephen King's The Dark Tower. There's 7 books in the series, so I'm almost done with book 5, and then 2 more to go. It's very, very good. I'm enjoying it much better than my first read 30 years ago. I am still also reading Duma Key by Stephen King, but that's the one that's hardcover and sits upstairs in the bonus room, and I only read it once in a while.
It's hard for you.
But it's a good book. I just don't get there much. What are you reading, son?
So I think the last time I talked to you about what I was reading, I was still reading The Magician Master.
Yes.
Feist's Rift War books. So I finished that. I then rolled straight into Small Favor, back to Dresden for a little bit.
Ooh.
Read through that, and have started now R.F. Kuang's Babel.
Oh, okay.
So far has been good. Haven't really had a whole lot of time to read that one yet, but it's kind of like I'm a couple chapters in. I'll get going on it a little bit more soon. And in the meantime, in a different line of things, I finished off Dark Age, the next book in that Red Rising book series, trilogy and beyond that I've been reading. And then immediately went, let's finish off what there is so far. And so I've read through Lightbringer now as well, which just came out this past year, this summer.
And you finished it?
Yep. Lightbringer's done.
Okay.
Very good. Very excited for what comes next. Hoping I don't have to wait 4 years or more. So we'll see.
More things. We'll have to get some book blasts for you on. I'm, of course, curious. Small Favor, Dresden Files. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
You'll have to wait and see on the book blast.
Oh.
But no, then an audiobook, I'll probably, there's still a little bit out yet, but I'll probably be going back to Dan Simmons to finish off Fall of Hyperion next.
Okay. That book blast we did of yours has gotten some interesting comments. Not everybody likes Hyperion. Not everybody
and you know what?
That's series.
Fair.
Oh, there were some people who chimed down that they enjoyed it, but some that clearly did not. So interesting. And I appreciate that you say that's fair. All right. Well, let's talk about something that most people of good fantasy value do enjoy, The Wheel of Time.
And if they don't, they're
Those
probably
who
not
don't aren't watching
watching
this.
this. Yeah.
Lord of Chaos, Chapter 4, A Sense of Humor. And that's a great title for this chapter because humor permeates elements throughout this entire chapter.
Hmm.
So this picks up where Rand has left the farm, where he put Mazrim Taim in charge of testing and training men to turn them into power-wielding weapons. Now he appears in an army camp on the western border of the nation of Tyr, where thousands of Terran and Kyrianan soldiers are gathered, along with 5 times as many Aiel soldiers, warriors. It's a massive, impressive army, all apparently poised to move west towards Ilion. But he's got a tent here, a fixed tent, which implies the camp's kind of permanent for now. Can I say permanent for now?
It may be semi-permanent, but it's definitely been around long enough that it's not like, oh, they got here yesterday, they're moving on tomorrow. It's like, no. This is a staging ground for the moment until eventually they'll go somewhere else. Rand's been through here before and will probably be through again.
Yeah. Now, Rand actually appears as he travels, this gateway he makes, inside a tent where no one else is. It's reserved specifically for his traveling purposes, and it's guarded on the outside at all times by Aiel. Why? What would be the concern that he has to keep this place guarded like that?
I mean, realistically, if he ain't there, anyone could set up traps. Especially like something power related so that it's waiting for him to come through. That's not really good.
Yeah, that could be. That could be. I'm thinking it's a different reason, personally. And the book doesn't specify, but when a gateway opens somewhere, it like will slice through anything. We've seen that
you
before.
think it's just to protect people from getting dead?
I think he doesn't want to just open it up somewhere and have somebody happen to be walking by at the time, and whoop, there's 2 pieces of the person now.
I think that
could be both these reasons.
Possible. I think it's less likely. Because unfortunately, I think we've reached a point, and we've seen it in these last few chapters, and so kind of how the world is being viewed in the prologue. Rand is losing a lot of his sense of caring for the little people because he feels he has to.
Okay. Well, a new thing has popped up here. Rand notes mentally. Again, this is a POV chapter where we're getting Rand's way of thinking. And the new thing that pops up that he sees as he comes out of the tent and is thinking of is that headband. There's a crimson headband that some of them are wearing. What's this thing about, Zach?
It's kind of a show of an extra fealty dedication to Rand, to the dragon. They're calling themselves and being referred to as Siswayamon, these spears of the dragon. Now, whether that's of or that they're his spears for him, by him, it's up to interpretation. The old tongue does that sometimes. But it's still kind of like, we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
It's there, but we don't acknowledge it.
So these crimson headbands have right over the brow the black and white symbol of the Aes Sedai. And yeah, what headband? If he asks anybody about it, they won't even acknowledge they're wearing it. The ones who aren't wearing it won't talk about them. It's kind of weird. And he doesn't like it because, especially since another translation, you mentioned there's different versions it might mean. One that disturbs him is it could be interpreted the spears owned by the dragon.
Yeah.
Like they're claiming they're his property now. He just gets to wield them.
Which, while not a pretty sight, is kind of what Rand's been doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Rand inquires of the maidens and other Aiel that are around the tent here. Where's High Lord Wyraman? Who's he again?
If I remember right, he's a Terran Lord. He was initially like sent to be semi in charge of helping out with some things, and so he is like the de facto kind of in charge when
Mm-hmm.
Rand's not there. But he's also kind of a putz.
Buffoon comes to mind for me.
Yeah, that's a word for it.
Yeah. And he has to kind of be in charge because of the High Lords here. He's the highest in rank.
It's a dumb
So
reason to be in
he
charge.
won't answer to anyone else. I mean, that's how it is. So, okay, you won't listen to anybody. I guess you're in charge.
Basically, you're a brat who throws a temper tantrum if you're not the one who gets to tell other people what to do. So I'm going to let
Pretty
you
much.
tell other people what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dumb reasons.
Rand learns Wyraman and the other Wetlanders have been keeping to themselves, and the leaders, like Wyraman, they have been excluding Aiel leadership from any discussion or decisions, which is one more thing for Rand to address as he comes back here now. But this is not really a new thing. The Terrans, the Kyrienans, the Aiel, they don't play well.
It
So
doesn't help
Rand,
that they all still remember that like 20 years ago there was a big war.
a little, well, depends who you talk about. The
And if you
Aiel
go,
think of a little skirmish.
yeah, and if you go historically even further, a lot of these groups have history, some good, some bad, and it leads to a lot of complicated tension.
Yeah, the Terrans and the Kyrienans don't share a lot in common except that they both don't like the Aiel.
Mm-hmm. The only people that they hate more than each other are the Aiel.
And so Rand is reflecting on this as he's walking through the camp to the tent location where the Aiel had pointed out that's where Wyraman and the leaders are. One of them is, the fact that how the Tyrants and Kyrienans here are still barely tolerating each other. He also notes he sees people on duty killing crows, ravens, even rats. And they do it not because they care about the vermin so much, but because Rand has insisted they do it and in fact pays for corpses.
Mm-hmm. It's a little
Why?
mean and rude because, I mean, what did those crows, rats, and ravens do except for the fact that, maybe they're spying for the Dark One. Maybe they're not. Maybe they just are. They might just exist.
But Rand
But
knows
they
they can be
can
used that
be.
way. Yeah. But the Terrans, the Kyrienans, they're like, yeah, right, Lord Rand. Yeah, sure, good one. But if you'll pay us for the bodies, okay, we'll hunt them down anyway. They don't believe this kind of stuff. Why would they not?
Because, I mean, to be perfectly frank, they don't have a lot of experience with Shadow Spawn, with the Dark One, with people who wield the One Power even. In a lot of ways, these are the least superstitious people on the continent. They don't have a reason to believe it's more than just a story or it's exaggerated. The closest they have is, well, Rand has done some real scary stuff with the power, and we've seen some of that. And then we know Aes Sedai can do things with the power. But surely people who can like melt out of shadows that's exaggerated. They're just really sneaky or something.
Yeah. If Rand was here amongst a bunch of Borderlanders, there'd be a different conversation. He wouldn't even have to order them to be hunting these things down. They're used to being right there up against the Blight, dealing with Shadow Spawn all the time. But these guys, Terrans, Kyrienans, they're much further removed from the Blight.
I feel pretty
easy to think
confident
of those things
saying
as not so real.
the only time the Tyrants have really seen Shadow Spawn in the last 50 plus years is when they attacked at the beginning of the Shadow Rising.
And not all of them were there for that. So they seem to be quite willing to dismiss things that others tell them as, well, maybe that's how you saw it, or maybe
also,
you got taken in.
Maybe you were drinking a little too much.
There are those amongst the Terrans who actually have convinced themselves that Rand taking the Stone of Tyr was not all that it looked to be. that there was some sleight of hand going on even there. We'll talk more about that coming up shortly. But one other thing in Rand's thoughts here is Aiel humor and wetland humor being vastly different.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as he's coming out of the tent, he's seeing some joking around going on between one of the maidens and one of the Aiel warriors, the men, and kind of one-upping each other with jokes, and he's not entirely seeing what was so funny. And then as they're walking away, Sulin mentions, you never seem to laugh at the jokes. Do you not get it? You
Correct.
should
Rand
laugh some
doesn't
more.
get it.
Maybe you don't have a sense of humor. So he stops, he turns, he tells a joke.
And they don't get
And
it.
they totally don't get it. He's like, whatever. There's a definite disconnect on humor. I thought that was very funny, but hey.
But
not his
some people
joke.
probably wouldn't, because there's a disconnect of humor.
So Rand enters the leader's tent and finds 4 of the High Lords of Tyr inside. By name, we're talking about Wyraman, Sunaman, Tolmaran, and Torian.
Sure,
Now,
we'll go with that.
Yeah, there are another 8 lesser Terran lords, not worthy of having their names displayed.
They who are not named in this scene, but will maybe probably be named later because everyone gets a name.
Wyraman announces, "All hail the Lord Dragon, soon to be conqueror of Ilion! All hail the Lord of the Morning!" And that last phrase sends Rand's thoughts off in a whirl, distracted. What was the deal with Lord of the Morning? I mean, what?
I mean, it's a title that, if I remember correctly, and I'm interpreting the help that you gave me in the notes, I'm giving you credit here. This isn't a Rand title. This is a dragon-related title. This is something that harkens back to Luz Theron Telamon, the War of Power, and all that stuff. And therefore kind of is like, yeah, Rand gets this title as the Dragon Reborn. But also more, no, this is a title he's inherited by nature of who he is, and he's still got that weird voice in his head that says, no, that is me. I'm LTT. Eee.
Of course, that shifts him to think about that voice. And in the previous chapter, he'd actually shouted at the voice to shut up, and he hasn't heard from the voice since. So now he's thinking, did the voice in my head actually hear me and obey?
Is that
he's not
better
sure.
or worse?
Yeah. If you just, going mad is one thing, but having a totally different person in my head talking to me.
Talking to yourself is fine. Responding is where we get a problem.
Right. Rand then learns here from these lords, as he enters into conversation, that the 2 last High Lords that they're waiting for, they're not coming. Rather, they've gone off somewhere else, another place in Tyr, Haddon Merk. Why? Why are they not joining the group?
Maybe because they think that they can make it better on their own and take back over and say, "Ha, you're not our Lord, Rand."
Could it be treason?
Yes. Treason's a funny word to say, though, because it implies that Rand is, like, rightfully in charge. And he is.
Still prophecy. Come on.
He is, but he's also not. Like, they have a valid grievance to be like, we were in charge, you came in and took over by force, and then claim it's prophecy in this, and sure, it fulfills things. Is it really treason to oppose that and say, you're not rightfully in charge, so why are we listening to you, and let's oppose you by force? Or is it holding strong to your own personal tradition with a military force? That's not necessarily a good thing, but
these 2
lords,
lords,
a strong word.
These 2 aren't the first to go, and
no.
I'm going to say it is rightfully called treason, because these 2 are amongst all of these lords that swore fealty to Rand. I don't care what the reason is behind all that. They swore to listen and obey, and now they're breaking oath. So that is treason by the laws of Tyr.
Yeah.
There's one exception here,
Okay.
because they're going to join a bunch of others who are already in Haddon Merc. The High Lord Tadosian, the High Lady Estonia, some 20 plus minor nobles that are out there. But the one who might be pointed to as in charge is the High Lord Darlin. And he didn't swear to Rand. Darlin ducked out of Tyr. He refused to bow down to this trumped up High Lord dragon, whatever, and even has claimed all along this is some Aes Sedai trick. This is not real. This is a false dragon. So Rand kind of is like, well, this dude sucks and he's causing problems, but respect. Okay, he's stood for his principles, like you were saying before, Zach. The
Mhm.
others, though, no, they all bowed, they kowtowed, and now they're breaking oath. So he could care less about the rest of them. Darlin, well, it's still a problem, but he has at least a touch of respect for that one.
I'm even gonna go. I give a little bit more of a touch of respect to Darlin, if only because he has to be credible enough to seem like an opportunity for the others who swore to Rand to jump ship.
Hmm.
Because they're ultimately cowards going with what they think is going to get them the best opportunity.
Truth.
That's why they swore to Rand in the first place. They didn't see a better option. Darlin is a better option to them, meaning he has to be competent enough to be a good option. It tells us something right there.
So what's Rand going to do about it? He can't afford a distraction right now. He needs this force to be seen to be totally focused on and aimed at Ilion. But he also can't afford to be seen weak by his own soldiers. So what does he decree? I've got a list of things here. Go ahead and read off the list. This is what he said.
Straight up, their titles are forfeit, their lands and estates taken. He puts out the APB. They will be arrested. If they get murdered, it's not murder. You're fine. These people are rogues, bandits. They have no rights, basically.
Mm-hmm.
You can deal with them as
Kill
you
away!
need be.
Kill away!
They are traitors. Anyone who helps them are traitors. Them and anyone who helps them are punishable by death if they ever get caught for any reason.
Because again,
But
treason that is on the books in Tyr, treason is punishable by death.
with all of this information getting spread out, if any surrender and just come back, well, their lives will be spared. They still won't get their titles, they won't get their lands, they won't get any of that. But they can live.
That's right. And he throws that bone out there because that thing he has about women, one of the ones out there in charge is a high lady.
And arguably the one who needs to die the most.
He doesn't want to have to execute a woman. So, given a chance. Now, the gathered lords, they hear all this, and he sees just shock on their faces. But it's not because of the death sentence.
No,
They know the
They'll
result of
die.
treason. So, what's the death? What is it that's so shocking them?
The fact that they're getting stripped of station. The very idea that they're noble, now they're not, is unheard of to them and calls into question, well, if he can do that, what's to protect my title?
Yeah. Ooh. It's not taking their wealth, they're taking their land. Because, that's possessions. It happens. You pay fines, whatever. But to be stripped of title, yeah. Because that's who they are. It's like they were born into these roles. It's the essence of who they are. It's why they're better than the peasantry.
Newsflash, you're not.
So they're very unsettled by this, but Rand's like, okay, I've taken care of that. Let's talk about the important things.
Yeah, Rand, just gonna throw this out there. Maybe you didn't take care of it just by decreeing this. Maybe that's a mistake. Maybe
We'll see.
maybe
We'll see.
shouldn't just gloss over it.
What he does shift the focus on now, though, is Samael. Okay, come on, guys, we got to focus on Samael, and he sees the reaction as they shift to that topic. Some of them smirking a little. The smiles get a little tighter, and it's about the word Samael. Why are they kind of, yeah, Samael, right? What's going on?
Um, let's go back to the ravens and things. They don't really know or care that much about the idea of a Forsaken. If
Or
it is real,
believe,
yeah, if it is
believe.
real, it's terrifying and they don't really want to think about it. But because they don't want to think about it, they're going to believe, well, that's maybe someone's going by a name that is using a thing, but like, that's not really the objective here, Rand. The objective is to take over one of our lifelong enemies that we don't like and destroy this rival city state. Let's get rid of Ilian. Who cares about
Yeah.
Samael?
Which,
Ilian.
which brings into the point in Rand's mind, these guys, they make kind of think I'm losing it. Oh, yeah, the Forsaken Samael. They don't care. They'll follow a madman if it'll take down Ilian.
It's okay. They don't care or really remember that they were kind of run by a Forsaken.
Oh, no, no, they weren't. That was a High Lord who just had gone a little screwy.
Yeah, of course. And
Yeah.
one of the Aes Sedai plots was to hit him with a blast of something that erased him for part of existence.
That was all part of the Aes Sedai scheme. Yeah, yeah. They like to tell themselves stories so they can sleep better at night. Right now, the story they're telling them is this is really all about conquering Alien. So they're behind that. Absolutely.
It's really just kind of a good, like the way they lived was a metaphor for how they view the world. They literally slept on top of a massive pile of items of power and just pretended it didn't exist.
The great line from Mythbusters applies here. I reject your reality and substitute my own.
Yeah.
But before they can discuss this any further, the Aiel chiefs arrive. The room's tone shifts considerably. The Kyrianans, they ignore the Aiel. The Terrans look down on them with disdain, even holding handkerchiefs up to their noses as if the smell, oh, yeah. The Aiel mostly ignore both sets of men, except for one of them, Han. Han glares at anyone who will make eye contact murderously. He's got that tree killer look on his face.
Granted, it's not that murderous. He's not veiled.
True, but he's given them a look of,
Give me an excuse.
you will die, you will die, you will die. Oh, what is that bit about tree killer that I threw in there? Remind us very briefly.
Kyrianan, they were given a gift of a cutting of the tree of life, and well, they chopped it down to make a throne, and that started that war.
Yes. Now, this is all described here to remind us of the constant tension between these three disparate groups that Rand, as the Dragon Reborn, has pulled together. And he's tried to make them work better, more smoothly, and it's pretty much hopeless. They are who they are. They're here because of him. Nothing he's going to do is ever going to really bring them into a united group, is kind of where he's at. So, let's do business. They discuss the circumstances. Samael, or Lord Brend, as again those in denial prefer to think of him, has called up pretty much every man of Ilion who can hold a weapon without tripping over it, and brought them into 5 camps on the eastern edge of Ilion, ready to defend against a Terran or an invasion from the Terran direction. Their borders don't come right smack up. Okay, so you've got Tyr, you've got Ilion. There's a gap of about 250 miles, in which is mostly an area called the Plains of Moredo, which is a lot of open territory with not much of anything. There is, it's noted, one city, Farmatting, is in that area. That's named here, kind of on the northern end. But they won't really have to go through Farmatting. They'll just be needing to cross this big open space that has no resources, no farms, nothing they can get resources from.
Because
so part of what they're doing is needing to prepare to cross this stretch of land.
Whose land is it technically?
No one's. It's one of those signs of how civilization has declined over the last few centuries.
There's not really any use here. So some people live here sometimes, but like not really. And the most that do are in that one little city that's kind of autonomous.
Yeah, yeah. They've been keeping an eye across that stretch of land on what's going on with the Ilianers. That's how they know all these five camps have gathered, and all the men are headed there or are there already, ready to fight. The Aiel confirmed this, saying, "Yep, we've had runners getting out there and coming back." So our news is up to date as of 5 days ago. That's how long it takes for our runners to cross that distance. Think about that. 250 miles, 5 days. Someone running 50 miles a day.
Well,
That's like a double marathon every day,
yeah,
5 days in a row.
yeah,
Wow.
it's a lot.
Wireman doesn't really think much of that because he ignores what the Aiel says. He confirms the five camps with the most accurate of information. My scouts have been able to get there and back in a month. So, it's a month is the most recent information we have, basically. Yeah, they can't quite make the same distance there. And he's scoffing that Aiel could do that. But Wireman considers his reports far superior to what the Aiel must be making up, even though they're giving the same exact information.
Now, I'll give him just a little bit of credibility, tiniest bit. This is unfamiliar territory for the Aiel. They're still better,
Oh, so better.
but these wetland nations have different terrain, different territory, so it is a little different. They may not fully understand what wetlanders are doing at times.
Now, Rand knows that their information is actually accurate. He doesn't actually need their scouting. It's more like it gives them something to do.
Yeah.
Because he's confirmed it in his own way. And what is that way? How does he know there are these five camps out there?
I don't remember. I'll be honest.
He's been there in the dream.
He been doing that again?
Yeah. He doesn't call it Teleron Riad, which we know it is as readers. I don't know if he knows that name, but he has traveled there in the dream world and seen the encampments. He knows they're there. Wireman insists, "Now is the time to strike, my lord, while Ilian is still pulling their forces together." But Rand's orders are, nope, we are staying put. Wireman's plan, as Rand looks at it, would actually be suicide. By the time they all crossed the 250 miles separating their forces, Ilian would be more than ready for them, would totally see them coming, and it would be just picking them off as they try to approach.
We could rush and get there in 2 months with our full forces, and therefore be tired and not prepared on our end while we've given them 2 months to finish preparing.
Right? More importantly, though, they are ordered to wait here for something else. They're waiting for someone's arrival. Do you remember who that is?
Matt.
Yes. We learned that in a previous chapter that Matt and the Band of the Red Hand were sent south to take command of this army. So apparently they're on the way. And you're going to wait here till he shows up. Rand makes two things clear. This is about being as fully prepared as possible to completely demolish Samael. And while Rand wishes he could be present himself for this, Andor is commanding his attention at this time. So he's just checking in, but this will be Matt's task to lead.
Because ultimately, he's wrapped up in some politics because he kind of rushed into taking over another place.
He calls this meeting to an end, and Rand returns towards his traveling tent. He's going back that direction. He's accompanied by all the Aiel chiefs. They're not going to stay with the Kyrianan and Terrans after all. As they walk, the chiefs vent their frustration a little bit in the Aiel stoic way. Frustration that these I can't speak. The Wetlanders won't listen to anything they say. Also, from their own perspective, they're like, Rand, It would be good if we attacked right now, actually. We don't need those guys. Just let us go, and we'll get Ilian for you. We can take it out like that. Waiting is a waste of time. And Rand goes, well, of course, just go do it.
No.
Nah. He denies the request. He actually says sometimes wasting time is the right thing to do with your time, which they don't understand at all. And as he sees their reticence, he actually gets a promise from them to wait as ordered. They grumble a little, but they comply.
I think part of this is Rand isn't entirely sure what to do with these militant forces, but he knows that he doesn't really want to strike out with another big war that kills a lot of people again.
I'm going to differ on you with that. We're going to talk about that here because I think there's something else going on. But we'll get to that very shortly. Rand does not immediately enter his tent as they do arrive at the tent. Rather, he sits down with these chiefs and he takes time to socialize, gets out the tobacco, have a drink. We're going to chit-chat a bit. Why does he make a point to spend some social time with these Aiel chiefs now?
Because he did the same thing with the High Lords.
I mean, sorta. He didn't do any socializing with the High Lords, but he did meet with them without the Aiel. So now he needs to meet with the Aiel without them.
Make it a little bit fair, make it look like he's not giving favor to one side, because if he does, even give the appearance of that while he's gone, that's room for them to make that and use that as an argument to claim that they are more important than the other and have his own forces fall apart.
Yeah, so he's got to balance the scales. It's about honor. He's going to honor them at least as much, if not more, than he honored the other punks. The conversation here, though, with them is much more pleasant because they talk about anything and everything other than the impending battle with Ilian. What needed to be said about that has been said already. So they talk about odds and ends. Some of it's even humorous. Again, at least from an Aiel's unique perspective. When enough time has passed, the chiefs head back to their own areas, and the maidens, they bring some food for Rand. They actually chastise him a little bit. You're a little too thin. You haven't been eating enough. And they lean into that a little bit more, saying, if you weren't running away from Avienda all the time, she would be making sure you're eating. That's how a relationship works. Stop making it so hard for her. I know you're probably running away to make it look like you really are interested, but playing hard to get. No, cut it out. You don't have to do so much. And this wears on Rand a little bit. He literally turns to the two that are the most talkative and says, you aren't my mothers. And they look at each other and they're like, is that a joke again?
Because, we all kind of are your mother's sisters and everything. Deal with it.
Not on the same page. No. With that, they do return to Camelin. It's already nighttime, a little bit of time difference. And Rand, he just quietly returns to his rooms to turn in. Keeps the light off, tries to be real quiet as he's slipping out of his clothes because Avienda's there in his room on her pallet against the wall, as has been the case for weeks and weeks and weeks. He's thankful she's already asleep. Gonna try not to wake her up because this whole thing is still awkward for him. He likes her. Maybe she likes him. They did the igloo thing, but nothing since. And
is that what the kids are calling it? The igloo thing?
It works for me. After going to all the effort to change and quietly slip into his bed in the dark, Avienda turns over and simply says, sleep well and wake. So either he woke her up anyways, or she was awake the whole time.
She was awake.
And Rand, he feels like an idiot, not because he thought she was asleep. He feels like an idiot because her rolling over and saying that to him just feels good. It's like, why should that feel good? Come on.
I think it's okay that can feel good, but Rand, maybe you should stop ditching her all the time.
The chapter ends with Rand thinking about humor. Again, sense of humor is the name of the chapter. And how the biggest joke of all of this is that massive army that Rand has formed on the border of Tyr. But it's a joke only Matt and Bashir realize. And Rand. Samael, he's got no sense of humor. Rand remembers this, which is another issue. How does he remember? But he remembers. Samael has no sense of humor. By the time he realizes that army's a joke, well, the joke will have played out already and Samael will be dead. So this is where I want to turn it to. What do you think's happening? What clues maybe have been given us to this point, Zach, so that the army's a joke?
The only other way that I think you're taking this is Rand is stalling so that he can bring a army of channelers. This is where he wants his Ashaman to make their stand and suddenly walk in. And this army's a joke because compared to the firepower I'm bringing,
well, it's good speculation.
I think that's where
what I'm thinking.
You were thinking.
No, I'm not thinking. My thought process is pure and simple that he's got this massive army here as smoke and mirrors, pure distraction. He wants Samael thinking this is what he has to worry about. But there's something else planned. Again, something that only Matt and Bashir know. And everything he did when he talked to them down there was clearly to make it look like we are focused on Samael. And he wants Samael, seeing they are focused on Samael. They are focused on Ilian. But he's got something else planned.
I think that's totally valid, probably true, likely even. I don't think we've necessarily actually seen hints towards that actually being the case.
I think we
in
have.
The chapters so far.
Just right here in this chapter we read. I think that was the subtext I was pulling out.
I hazard to say that there may be a certain element of hindsight fueling your subtext.
You could be right, but I disagree. But for those of you reading for the first time, you be the judge. I will say, pay attention. Pay attention as we move forward. But speaking of moving forward, let's move to chapter 5, which is going to take us over to Matt Cawthon, and his point of view as he's on his way down to take over the generalship, the leadership of that big old army. And we find him in a town called Meron in the second best inn, a place called the Golden Stag.
Why not the best inn?
We're going to find out as we move through the chapter. We get a few quick understandings from Matt's thoughts. One, the drought that has been referenced for a couple of books already has continued and is seemingly getting even worse. It's not just that everything's so dry, it's also hot, unseasonably hot.
It's November and they're still at 98 degrees.
Right? And it's not Texas, but it feels like it. Food choices getting limited already due to the drought. I mean, there's some things you usually would have available that just aren't now. And Meron, this town, it's packed, not just with Matt's men, and he's got a lot of men with him, but also refugees. Now, refugees from where? Well, this is kind of in between Andor and Kyrian territory, but it's actually kind of a no man's land. Nobody officially claims it right now. But that civil war in Kyrian certainly led some people to get away, and Meron is one of the places they got away to. So that's
there were a lot of refugees from that in two directions. One was just getting anywhere out of Kyrian, including Meron. The other was trying to run to the city, thus leading to the city was overpacked.
Okay, yeah. It also has the advantage that it's right along the river Arenin, which is that separating line between Kyrian and Andor. So if you're trying to get out of Kyrian, you'd want to get across the river. So refugees here hoping that they could get across the river, but someone's got to take you across. It's kind of like the Mississippi. You don't swim across it.
What's the river's name?
Arenin. Irinin? Erinin?
I think I always said Aaronin, and that's why I'm like, is this one where I'm just wrong or
No, I think we should say Erinin. Brain freeze. Maybe it happened because Carrie jumped in just now. Hi, Carrie. Good to
hi?
see you. And I didn't want to call it Carrie, so a
You
different
could
word came
have.
out
You
wrong.
could have.
The River
What does
Carrie.
Robert Jordan know? It's the River Carrie.
Now, Matt is staying at this inn I mentioned, the Golden Stag, and it's a classy place. It's well appointed, it looks like money, and it's got great serving girls. They all are well dressed, healthy, young, beautiful. It's kind of the image he has. He looks around, he's like, I've chosen well. And the only other people in the inn with him are his officers. So while most of the inns around town are packed, this one actually has a smaller crowd. And it's just because it's Matt and his officers that chose this one, and others respect that and kind of keep their distance. Plus, the common men don't necessarily like to hang out with the officers because the officers will tell them things they have to do.
And to be perfectly frank, no person likes to gamble with Matt unless they're rich.
Well, that's true. That's true. And we get that right away because Matt's sitting at one table, but right near him is another table with three of his officers who are named Tomanes, Darid, and Nelisian. And their conversation is trying to think of ways they could get money back from Matt because they've all lost to him gambling.
Mm-hmm.
Matt's attention is pulled away from that conversation by a serving girl, Betsy, who shows up ready to pour some more wine for him. And Matt's had his eye on Betsy. She's the one that really kind of caught his eye the most when he first showed up. But he hasn't had a chance to speak to her yet. And it's been a few days that they've been here. So here's an opportunity. She opened up the conversation. Would you like some wine, Lord? Can I help you with that? And they engage. He turns his flirtation meter up a little bit. And she's not biting too much. But he does eventually get her to start talking. And holy cow, once she starts talking, she doesn't shut up. And she goes a mile a minute. And just things keep rolling out of her mouth. She's a one-person conversation. It's so one-sided and so much coming at him so fast that the three other guys over the table, they start smiling into their hand and snickering because it's like, this is hilarious. But it's also a vehicle that Robert Jordan, as the author, uses to remind us of a bunch of things about Matt, since it's our first time seeing him in this book. One, Matt's got a fixation on not being a lord.
I mean, he's not a lord.
Darn right, and don't you forget it. He has a scar around his neck. Now, what's that from? We know what that's from.
Decapitation. No, I'm kidding. It's from when he got hung.
This is a fantasy. Yes, look at that. So, from what?
When he got hung from that tree, the big tree of life.
Yeah. He wears a fox head medallion around his neck. And what's that about?
It signifies that he's a witcher. No, I'm kidding.
Jeez, we're having real crossovers here.
No, it's one of his little gifts that he got from the Elfin and the Ilfin, the whole mess, the whole 9 yards. It also, makes him relatively impervious to channeling.
Also, he is a young man who knows too much. If she only knew. I mean, how is it actually true that he knows too much?
He's got a bunch of dead guys' memories in his head.
That's a pleasant way to think of it, but accurate. Matt's response to her when she finally takes a moment to breathe is in reference to his scar. And here he goes all kind of braggy, dismissive of wounds and such. And he says, I got that scratch for knowing too little. I know too much now, but too little then. You could say I was hanged for knowledge.
And I think if Robert Jordan had been more interested in making the pun, he should have said, I was hung for knowledge.
Betsy's response suggests Either she isn't sharp enough to follow his witticism, or she's too sharp for him and is intentionally then tripping him up and not letting him just wow her with his words. Either way, the flirtation is not going the way Matt would prefer, so he shifts tacks. Let's not use words, let's dance. Then he's thinking in his mind of something his Da taught him, that dancing is a way to a woman's heart. If you can get her to dance well with you, you'll be able to take her much further. Okay, let's try that. And dancing, will that work? Well, she had already said she wouldn't sit and drink with him, that the mistress, the innkeeper, she certainly wouldn't allow that. But dancing? She glances over and there's Mistress Delvin at the bar, and she nods her head, saying, okay, that would be fine. So off Betsy goes with Matt. And he teaches her dances, just follow me, a dance from one of his past memories. So this is not a dance that people would necessarily know these days, but it matches the beat of the musicians. And he actually gets caught up in the recollection of the time where someone in his past was dancing this dance. A guy who was a little taller than him, dancing with a beautiful sea folk maiden and whatnot.
But let's rephrase that a little. He gets caught up because he doesn't remember a time where someone else is doing this. He remembers a time he did this.
Even though he was someone else at that time, apparently. Yeah. It's very confusing. But he gets so sucked into that memory, he almost trips up the dance. And that's what it's trying to remind us of. You said it very well. These aren't just things like history that he can think of and know knowledge of. He literally remembers doing these things, which is impossible.
I wonder if Matt and Rand shared their inner voice and thought memory experiences. Would it make them feel more or less crazy that they weren't really entirely alone?
That's a good question. Probably more crazy. Shared psychoses. Matt, as he's thinking about these memories then, is like, that's what I get for jumping into things without fully understanding the likely ramifications. Well, enough of that type of behavior.
Totally.
Yeah, sure, Matt. We're reminded that Matt believes these other men's memories from long before the Trolloc Wars, all the way up through the final battle of Arthur Hawkwing's rise. It's these memories that are the reason the men of the Band of the Red Hand are following him. Not that they know anything about the memories, but he's been using that knowledge in ways that have been very useful so far. He has yet to fail at some battle they've come across, because he's got all these recollections of battles won and battles lost and how those things took place, and he keeps using it every time they come across such a circumstance, unless he can figure out a way to stay out of it in the first place. The other thing about this Band of the Red Hand that follows him that kind of makes him cringe is the very fact they chose that name.
Yeah.
In his memories, he can remember that time, the legendary band that died trying to save Manetheren.
He can remember being part of that band.
Yeah, and dying. But it's a legend to these people. They don't have that visceral knowledge that he has.
They were just like, it was the greatest warriors ever kind of thing.
Right?
It's like, well, we are them again.
They kind of picture we're going to be legends as well.
Matt says it's not fun being legends because they all are dead now.
Yeah, legends usually die. That's how they become legends. We get a few other nuggets as Matt continues to ponder, and that's that his band, the Band of the Red Hand, is now 6,000 strong and growing every day as more people flock to him. They hear about this thing. They want to be a part of this. We get reminded that he's headed south to take command of that entire army that's aimed at the bloody Forsaken. Matt's thought. And speaking of, he is the known target of Forsaken. He's come to understand that now. So having 6,000 men around him does have some benefits. He feels a little bit safer.
It helps to have people to help fight off the various shadow spawn that come for you in the night.
And why is he a target of the Forsaken? Moraine had told him something, and if she was right, what is it? Why would they be coming after him? He has a role to play in the last battle.
And if
Something
you
to do
can,
with being there with Rand and helping him
yeah.
win in some manner.
So if you can get rid of some of those supporting characters, maybe the rest of it just kind of falls apart or doesn't work as well.
Right. So he's been elevated clearly in the eyes of the Forsaken as someone important. If they could take him out, it would be good for them. Okay. The dance ends. Betsy had a marvelous time. So Matt asks, just thinking about all the big picture and stuff. So he pops into his head one of those other things he's heard about. Have you heard of the Daughter of the Nine Moons? Does that mean anything to you?
Yeah,
And
Matt
of
just
course, it
casually
means
is like, "You wouldn't happen to be my future wife, are you?"
that's his thought. Of course, she's like, is that the name of another bar? Yeah, she doesn't. It doesn't mean anything to her. But yeah, somewhere out there, there's a woman, the Daughter of the Nine Moons,
Well,
prophesied to be his wife.
we assume that's what that means. He was told he'll marry the Daughter of the Nine Moons.
It could be a cow.
It could be a
What?
bar. We don't know.
Marry a bar.
It could be a symbolic thing. I mean, the maidens are wed to the spear. Clearly, you don't have to be human.
Maybe his Ashandarai's real name is Daughter of the Nine Moons.
Maybe.
Ooh.
It's probably not, but maybe.
Before they can dance another dance, Edorian appears to get Matt's attention, another of his officers. He's come to get Matt at this time, as Matt had instructed, keeping Matt on a schedule, because Matt knows it's important to be on a schedule, but also knows himself. He'd lose track of time, he'd be flirting, he'd whatever, and wouldn't think of it.
Dancing's fun.
This is actually a good leadership skill. Leaders aren't perfect at everything, but they know things have to get done. And if they're not good at keeping a schedule, they'll find ways to have others fill in their weaknesses. So he assigned Dorian as the timekeeper. Show up and help me know it's time to do what I wanted to do.
To be perfectly honest, the best assistants in a lot of the world are good because they make the person that they're assisting actually good at their job.
Sure.
They would be bad at their job without the assistant.
Matt does depart then with Dorian. And what's actually scheduled for this time of day, every day, is to do rounds. Just to check on different things amongst his men each day at this time. He wants to make an appearance. He wants to show he's checking in and inspecting. And it's always something different. So they don't know when he might come by. It keeps them on their toes. He figures that, if I'm stuck with the job of leading all these men, I should do it right. And this is one thing that will work.
But if he is stuck with it, it'd be real dumb of him to have a bad force of men that are just going to get killed.
As they go, we get a few more nuggets. Marone had been in Cairhien, but the borders have shrunk. So Marone is really in no nation at this point. Who's actually here? Well, it's a mix, therefore. The townspeople are approximately 50-50, Cairhienans and Andorans. Matt has also seen a mix of other nationalities passing through. He's also seen 3 or 4 Aes Sedai, but he's stayed clear of them. Matt doesn't wear uniform or armor. That comes up here because he's thinking about the rumors that have sprung up over that, which are awesome.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go for a step here. Matt doesn't wear traditional uniform or armor because Matt kind of wears a uniform in that he has a certain style and a couple of things of preference that he always sticks to that then leads to further mythos around him.
Oh, yeah. We'll come to that. Absolutely. Because when they think he doesn't have chainmail, plate mail, no armor per se. And they're like, well, why doesn't he? I mean, he's leading the army. He's in charge. Maybe it's, mad bravery. He's so brave that he's reckless and doesn't care. That's one. But that's one of the more harmless ones. Another is that he knows that only a weapon forged by the Dark One himself could kill him. So he has no reason to fear. The best one is connected kind of with, I think, what you were going with. He has a magic hat.
Always
There's a
wears
rumor
hat.
that hat he always wears was given to him by an Aes Sedai, and it prevents anything from killing him as long as he's wearing it. Which he also thinks is the best one, because he's like, no, I love the hat because it keeps the sun off my head. But, hey, whatever. Then there's rumors flying around about his spear, this Ashandarai. And those are even better, he thinks, but none of them match the truth.
Granted, the truth is kind of crazier, considering he was given it, hung by it from the Tree of Life after making a deal with snake people who wanted to eat him, kind of unknowingly.
Dimension. Yeah.
And that's all just the things he knows about it.
Also, they see many of these refugees, dirty, worn down, hungry-looking people. And again, the remembrance, why are they gathered in this town? They want to try to get across the river to Andor, where it will be better. But no boats have been willing to give them passage. There aren't many boats at all coming up and down the river these days. But any of them would charge, and these people have nothing. He's taken some pity on them. One of the things he asks... he asks Adorian, did you give them the soap? I ordered some soap given. He's like, well, yeah, we gave the refugees soap. Most of them sold the soap, so they could get something to drink because they're miserable. So they're still dirty, but now they're not as thirsty.
Well, technically they're more thirsty.
Now we do learn here why Matt is staying in the second best inn.
We do.
The best inn was damaged by a fight caused when Matt's men got a little too drunk, and others of the town folks and all, they started having a skirmish, and basically they broke the inn. So it is closed right now. The best inn in town is boarded up and in need of repair. That caused Matt to realize, okay, my group is growing so large, I need some MPs. Okay, I need a force that will police us because I can't be everywhere. So he creates a brilliant system. It's called the Red Arms, and different groups of the men, because these men, they all have formed themselves into their own little cliques and groups, even give themselves little names. He's assigned each of these various groupings of men to take a turn as the Red Arms for a day. When you are the Red Arms, your job, and I think you wear a red armband, you go around and keep the peace. If there's any fights happening, you squelch it. You do what you have to do to keep peace and order. And if anything happens that causes damage, harm under your watch, you and your group will be responsible for repayment.
You are liable.
Since enacting that, no other inns have been damaged.
Yeah.
They work very enthusiastically to make sure nobody is going to cause us to have to pay.
Yeah. Like if it was your job to ensure that they pay for the damage they caused, that'd be one thing. If you just have to pay for it,
Yep. One other thing he notes, folk from all over the continent are not just passing through this town. No, they're joining his band. His band is getting very multicultural. It's also starting to diversify by gender. He notices another woman who has clearly joined his band now. So it's not a big proportion. He's thinking that's at least the third that I've seen. And the women who have joined, they're clearly like this one he's looking at right now, a hunter for the horn. And they're joining up. Of course, we're reminded how pointless it is that anyone is still on the hunt for the horn.
Yeah, Matt already blew it. Matt blew it, and now it's in Tar Valon.
Yeah. It's already been found, people. Eventually, Adorian brings up that, there's a lot of us kind of wondering as to when we're going to move south again. We've kind of been here for a few days now. What's the plan, Matt? And what is the plan? Well, Matt says, we'll move when we move. It's important to just keep Samael guessing. Okay. Idorian comments on a rumor then that Rand had been in town yesterday. And Matt dismisses. He's like, the only news of yesterday is I took a bath. But he's also wondering, how closely is he being watched? Because Rand was in town, but the day before. So that's kind of close. It's an odd night visit, and Rand just shows up in Matt's room by traveling. So kind of shocking if anybody actually realizes it happened. But he also notes, and it's in the book, it was kind of an odd conversation. Rand rambling from topic to topic. He talks about the invasion plan, dealing with women, the rest of the nations falling in line. He talks about Perrin a little bit. He even mentions something about hearing a voice in his head.
Yeah, I think while it is concerning, and Matt's sitting here going, is he going more and more mad? Realistically, we have to sit here and go, Matt's really one of the only friends Rand has.
Yeah.
Rand is coming here and he has to talk business and stuff, but he also finally gets a moment to actually just talk to his friend.
It was maybe kind of healthy.
And he's stressed. He's not sleeping enough for sure. All these different factors. So Rand is a bit distressed and all over the place. And it's just kind of, in a sense, word vomiting all the things that he wish he could talk about at other times, which just seems even more discombobulated.
Now, they're well into the inspection tour at this point. They're actually getting near the end of what they were going to look at today. But then they come upon a commotion. A crowd of townspeople gathered around something, and Matt works his way through the crowd to see what's going on. He finds two Mirandians, one of whom has a young boy by the collar, and he's giving him a good shake. This boy is like just a little pipsqueak, no taller than Matt's waist. And is like, what is going on here? And he goes up and, puts an hand on the shoulder of the Mirandian who's doing the shaking. Is like, really? What's going on? Basically, this boy touched my horse. Okay, so what? And I'm gonna break this peasant's neck. How dare he? And it's like, that seems like a little bit of an overreaction.
Excessive. We don't do child murder.
And this Mirandian doesn't seem to give a whit that Matt's trying to change things up, stop it. So, Matt, well, you're not going to listen to words, you'll listen to action. And what does he do?
He might be prepared to castrate him.
Ouch. Yeah, we talked about the Ashendarai earlier. Now we get to see it in action as the first move is right up between the guy's legs, and he just crumples to the ground.
Notably, to be fair, I don't want to be misleading, he used the butt end. He did not use the sharp side.
Yes, this won't leave, it might leave permanent damage, but there's no blood that we can see yet. But this guy he's done, and the boy just takes off. The other Mirandian, he's going to stand up for his friend. He goes for his sword, and Matt's like, and crack. Whacks again with the butt of his spear on the man's wrist. Ow, he's not getting his sword. His other hand, he goes for a dagger, and the spear just goes a little higher. It knocks him right upside the head, and he's out for the count, too. Red Arms show up at this point. Matt leaves them to settle this business. While Idorian comes up, he's got the boy. The boy tried to run away. No, I've got him. It appears this boy is clearly one of the refugees by the clothes, the lack of cleanliness, kind of smells. And Matt's struck by, I swear this boy must be the ugliest in all creation. Like, that's
rude,
not very
but
kind.
Okay.
Getting to the bottom of things, it appears the whole commotion was caused not by the boy just touching the horse. He was sitting on this guy's horse when the guy came out of wherever he was, and he didn't take kindly for some strange peasant boy sitting on his horse. In fact, these Mirandians are hunters for the horn, lords that see themselves very highly, and this was just very inappropriate
Hmm.
in their perspective. Matt's still like, okay, yeah, overreaction though. You're not going to kill a little kid because he sat on your horse.
I mean, let's
So,
think about this just for a second. Matt always was a little bit of a trickster and did various things. He also raised horses with his family. So something like jumping on a random other person's horse and sitting up there a little bit might be something he did
hmm.
in the past.
So you're saying he might identify a little bit with this little guy?
Maybe a little. Well, he definitely thinks he's more dashing, but
Definitely.
otherwise.
Yeah. He tells his Red Arms, and he tells the other Mirandian, a third guy who's apparently their servant or helper or something, as he comes up, these guys out of town ASAP. I don't want to see them again. But turning to Ulver, this is the little boy, he finds out, my name is Ulver, and I'm 9. Or so he claims. Matt's like, he doesn't look big enough to be 9.
I bet he's actually 12. He just looks really small.
Maybe it's one of those stories you see on, the fake news from time to time. He's really a full-grown man who's just the size of a boy and still
Benjamin
posing.
Button disease.
Yeah. We also sadly learn he's an orphan. The Shido got his dad, and then while refugees, his mother fell ill to some bug and passed away. So he's on his own. And Matt's
dysentery.
golden heart kicks in. Again, you said he kind of maybe sees a connection. So this might be part of where this comes from. He directs Adorian to escort over to the Golden Stag, get him a bath, get him some new clothes and shoes. He doesn't even have shoes on. And find someone to watch over him. Now, Ulver starts to throw a fit because talk to me. He's talking to Dorian about Ulver, and Ulver takes offense at that. Am I not here? Am I not worthy? And Matt seems to connect with that too. He actually looks at him, yeah, when people talked about me when I was younger, I hated that too. I'm sorry. And so he explains everything to Ulver of what he's going to do now. And yeah, they seem to connect a little bit. But before this can be discussed any further, Estion, another of Matt's guys, comes running up saying, Matt, there's a big ship pulling in the harbor. I swear it's sea folk. You want to check this out? And Matt's like, sea folk ship up here. Doubtful, but sure, I'll come check it out. Leaves Adorian to take care of Ulver. Adorian clearly thrilled to be the caretaker of this dirty little boy. And Matt returns to the river with Estion. And indeed, they do discover a ship of the Athian, Mier, the sea folk. What would be odd about finding one of those here, Zach?
We're kind of at a really inland river.
Yeah.
Like days journey from ocean.
I mean, again, it's kind of Mississippi River-esque. So certainly a sea folk ship could come of it, but
however, sea folk
why
typically are just going to be maybe a day in, more likely coastal, and other riverboat traders will go up and down the rivers.
Yeah. They're not the river folk. They're the sea folk. They stay on the seas.
Yeah.
So Matt calls for a boat. Get me a boat. And while he's waiting for a boat to be got so he could get out there, he uses his looking glass, check out what's happening. And thanks to his unearned memories, these past lives where he does recall interacting with sea folk people, he can see what's happening and know what he's looking at. And simply what he sees is there's a boat from the other shore, the other side, coming out to the ship. And on it, by appearance, is a wave mistress and her sword master. Now, these are very high-ranked people in the culture of the sea folk. In fact, there's only the mistress of the seas herself that is more important, higher in rank than a wave mistress and her sword master. Now, we don't get any context on what these are. This is all Matt's thinking. But the point is, there's someone very important amongst the sea folk coming from land to the ship. He's watching that. And then they pull up anchor and they head up river farther. Matt's like, oh, well, clearly it's got nothing to do with me, and I'm not going to learn anything more. So I guess I'll just have to leave that be. But perhaps we're going to find out something more about that eventually. I mean, that's one of those things. It's clearly dropped here. We're supposed to notice it. Foreshadowing, people.
No, forget about it. It won't be important. It's fine.
Do not listen to him. Okay. Matt then returns to the Golden Stag, enjoys a full rest of the evening of drink and dance with his men, all the serving girls now eagerly participating in the dancing, and somehow Betsy is the one with Matt more often than not. Though he still never gets any further with the flirtation than dancing.
And you know what? That's okay. Maybe she just likes to dance.
When the night is late, Matt finally calls a halt to it. Time to turn in. And then he brings his officers close for a quiet word, and he says, the band moves at first light. Make preparations. And they're like, what? That's like just a couple of hours from now. We're not going to be able to get any sleep at all. And Matt says, that's probably right, but I am. I'm going to bed. Wake me up in 2 hours.
Yeah, he's not getting a lot of sleep.
The next thing we know, Matt and the band are riding away from Marone in the pre-dawn light. All 6,000 of the men. At Matt's orders, they are pushing on, and they plan to push hard. He tells them, we're going to do 35 miles today. And I want us hitting 35 miles every day. When we can consistently hit that, we'll stretch to go even faster. That sounds kind of brutal to his officers, but as you say, Lord Matt, what's the plan supposed to be causing here at this point then?
There's look, it's sneaky, but it's bad sneaky.
Yes.
So it's like you were saying kind of earlier, it's a feint. You're showing this, but not meaning it. And in the meantime, you're giving everyone a bit of exercise and practice at going faster. The faster your army can move, the better it is for you, because they're not planning on it.
Yeah, that could be a useful skill to have cultivated.
I mean, just think if everyone else is going 20 miles a day and you're going 50.
At best speed, it will still be a month before Matt and his band can arrive at the rest of the army. But Aiel, he's got spies. You know, Matt hasn't seen any pigeons go flying off with messages, but he's sure some did. Probably even before he was looking. In the meantime, Aiel's going to know the band is hurrying up to get down here now. There's some urgency suddenly. So, okay, I see the plan coming. They're not going to fool me. This is what Aiel will be thinking. But Matt's going, if the plan works, Aiel will be dealt with before Matt ever arrives at the army. And then there's a great final line. Direct from Matt's thoughts. You want to read that line?
For once, everything was going to work out the way he expected. Robert Jordan, did you just write that so that no one would believe it? Like, you jinxed it.
That's the end of the chapter, and that's the end of our spoiler light content in this episode. So if this is your first time, you probably should jump out now. Carrie, I know you are much farther along in this book, but what we talk about next could spoil more beyond that. So this is probably when you should head off. But we're glad you were here. Bye, she says. Bye. All right. It's time for us to do the thing.
The thing? The spoiler room. The thing.
That's right. I'm going to roll to see which of us gets to go first. I've got mine. You've got yours. Here we go. Just a 7.
I go first with an 8.
Oh man, so close.
That's okay. I'm probably not going to take what you want to talk about because we talked about Matt's Ashendara here a little bit, and we talked about what we knew of it and where it came from. And I casually threw out there that that's what he knew about it. It also might definitely be the key in and out of the Tower of Genji should he need it, which is really handy to have a way to get out of the Aelfin and the Aelfin's domain. He basically has a skeleton key to another dimension, which is nice and needs to be useful when he eventually is trapped there.
Yeah, very cool. Nice one. There's so much to that Ashendari, and no idea. What I want to go with, I want to talk about the High Lord Wyraman.
Okay.
Such a buffoon. What was the word you used for him? Do you remember?
Nope.
Well, I followed up with buffoon, I recall. But, he's the most important lord there. He won't listen to anybody, so everyone should listen to him. But eventually we're going to learn he's a dark friend. And my question is he already a dark friend?
Absolutely.
Is he trying to encourage Rand to do things that he knows will end up being disastrous? Or is he just being an idiot? And because he's an idiot, he also chose to be a dark friend. Hard to say.
I don't think he's a clever dark friend. I think he's just a dark friend.
To side with the dark, can you be clever?
Oh, yes, you can be clever.
Some certainly are.
You can be unwise.
But I think the dark does attract many of the lesser quality of people. And Wyraman would be one of those.
Station is not everything, even if he thinks it is.
But when he is revealed eventually as a dark friend, which is not till many, many books down the road, I'm like, yes, thank goodness. Never liked this guy. Now it's good that we can officially hate this guy.
Unfortunately, it's not always the case of people we don't like that we get that easy out. Sometimes it's a little less easy.
True. But yeah, not this time. All right. That's all I got. Let's run our outro. Here it comes. Boom.
Look at it.
Again, thanks for being with us. Yeah, check out the things. Always, like and subscribe. A lot of people have. Boast those numbers up. And we appreciate all of you who support us on Patreon already. Like Carrie, who was here in the live recording. Anyone can jump into a live recording if they support us on Patreon at any of the tiers. Just letting all those things go there. It's great. We should talk because audio people can't see this stuff.
They're missing out on my dancing.
They are. Check us out on YouTube, people. If you're only listening to audio, sometimes it's worth it. All right, that's all we got. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.